I'm Taylor and I went to Everglades National Park this winter on a really cool road trip throughout Florida. So I really hate in YouTube videos when I have to watch a 30-minute video to get the one piece of information I need. So if you're looking for something specific, look below. I'm going to list out the timestamps of everything we talk about so that you can fast forward to exactly what you need. Let's get going. Alright, so first we're going to talk about where we stayed. So within the Everglades National Park, it's pretty backcountry. It's pretty rural. There's not any hotels or Airbnbs or anything like that within the park. So there are 2 different campsites you can stay at. Both are operated by a third party that the park has authorized to work there. And so the first one is Long Pine, I think. Yes, Long Pine campsite. That's right at the entrance of the park. And then Flamingo is all the way kind of at the bottom, at the south of the park. It's about 45 minutes away from Long Pine, so it's out there. Long Pine, we found, had a lot more cell service. We didn't actually stay there, but as we were driving through that area, we had cell service. Down in Flamingo, we did not. So in Flamingo, they have 3 different types of campsites. There are walk-in tent sites where you park your car in a parking lot, and then there's this big open field that's right up against the water, and you just walk in with your tent, set up your tent, and there you go. Those have bathrooms. They all have bathrooms and showers and a place to wash your dishes, so you're great on amenities there. And then where we actually stayed was the A Loop, which is a drive-in tent loop. And so if you have a car, a van, anything like that, you would use this one and pull your car into the parking lot, or sorry, not a parking lot, it's like a loop, and there's little driveways, I guess, for your car, and then there's a picnic table and a space for you to put your tent. And so there's a loop with a bunch of those different spots. That's where we stayed most of the nights that we were in Everglades. And there they have, again, the bathrooms, the showers, the place to wash dishes, all the amenities are the same. And then the other option is the RV loop. We didn't even really go over there because we didn't have an RV to hook up or anything. So in terms of reserving spots in advance, we were there on I think we got there on a Wednesday. So it was on a weekday. We stayed through Friday night. And we actually made our reservations the day that we got there. So we didn't have to plan months in advance, which was really nice. We were trying to get one of the walk-in campsites because we saw how beautiful that location was, but those were full, but we were still able to get one of the drive-in campsites in the tent loop, I think they call it. So there's not a huge amount of planning we found around that. We went in the first week of February, so obviously timing has a lot to do with that. And if you are a planner, go for it. There's nothing stopping you from planning ahead. We just kind of liked to get there, look at the situation, figure out what we wanted to do, and then make some plans from there. They are building a new complex. It's a huge building. They're either building or renovating it. I can't tell. It's near the visitor center of Flamingo, and I'm not sure if that will have lodging in it. So that is an option. There's also these eco tents. I don't know if they're called eco tents or eco cabins or something like that, but they look kind of like yurts. And that's an option. You can reserve those online in the same place where you would reserve a campsite. You can also do chickees and backcountry sites at the beaches and any other kind of backcountry sites. That's through the actual park itself and not through this third-party vendor. And so in order to get permits, you can either do kind of same-day walk-in permits, or you can reserve online 3 months in advance or sooner. If you reserve online, you still have to go to the visitor center and pick it up in person. Just note that. Say hi to my roommate's cat, Stuart. He's a little hard to catch, but maybe... Oh, I got him. Say hi, Stu. This is Stuart. He's a little camera shy. He's never been outside, so he doesn't even know what he's missing. But Stuart would love the Everglades, I know it. So, backcountry sites, the permits, you can get those online or in person. We did the in-person option because this was like a super last minute thing and we didn't have really time to plan and get them online. But we were able to walk in on a weekday on a Thursday and just walk in and say, hey, we'd like to reserve a spot for tonight at a Chickie, and we were able to do that. So a Chickie, there's different options for these like backcountry sites. The Chickies are going to be a raised wooden platform in the middle of a bay or a marsh or some body of water. And so the one that we went to, and looking at pictures online, it looks like most of them are set up this way, but there's kind of two platforms where you could have a tent or enos or that kind of thing with a little walkway, a little boardwalk in between them, and then there's like porta potties on this boardwalk. And the whole thing is like not connected to land, it's just like in the middle of the water on posts. And so it's an experience. I would 100% recommend that. I loved it. It was out in the middle of nowhere. There were no people for miles, and it was crazy and a little bit intimidating, but it was beautiful watching the sunset and the sunrise, and 100% recommend. And it was like a little bit weird that there was a porta potty there, but it was actually like super nice to have that and not have to like pee in the water or something. I don't know what else you would do, but that doesn't sound super eco-friendly. So they've got the porta potties there for you. We ended up having hammocks there, and I slept in a hammock, and then my sister also had a tent, and so she slept in the tent. Either one works. You just have to make sure that your tent is freestanding and it doesn't like require any like stakes into the ground or poles put into the ground, because you're on a wooden platform. There's nowhere to like anchor something into the ground. All right. Finally, just give me a second here. Okay. Finally, last thing that I will say about where to stay. I'm not sure if these are official places and if you're allowed to stay there, if this is considered trespassing or anything, so you did not hear this here. But if you're in the Flamingo campground and you're in the A-loop where the tent sites are, and you go all the way to the back, you know, the furthest point south you can go, there's like a service road back there, and you can tell that like they used to have campsites back there. Like there's the old bathhouses and that kind of thing, but it's all overgrown and no one's using it. We saw a couple of vans and a couple cars park back there. I'm not sure if they got kicked out or like how well that's monitored, but if you're looking for some free dispersed campsites with zero amenities, you could check it out. I wouldn't bank on it, but it could be an option. All right, number 2, how to get there and how to get around. So the entrance of Everglades National Park is about 30 minutes from downtown Miami, maybe a little bit more. And so you could fly into Miami. We drove from Georgia down until we already had a car. I would definitely recommend having a car to get around. You would not want to be like Ubering or doing any kind of thing like that. Just rent a car, make it a little bit easier on yourself. And so you would have a car, and the entrance of the park is about 30 minutes away from downtown Miami, like I said, but then from the entrance of the park to Flamingo, which is like where the visitor center and like most of the like, I don't know, trails like that kind of thing are, that's another 45 minutes to an hour, depending on wildlife and other drivers and that kind of thing, weather, whatever. So be prepared for a little bit of a drive. Once you get to the park, you're like, we made it, and then you're like, actually we have about an hour left. So just be prepared for that. So then once you get down to Flamingo, which is where we stayed and where I would recommend staying, getting around. We brought bikes, and 100% I recommend that. It was really cool just to be able to bike down that main road. We got to see a lot of birds, cover a lot of ground really quickly. Also, a lot of the walking trails are also accessible by bike, and so you can just cover a lot more ground, see a lot more things if you have a bike, and they're all bike friendly. We took our bikes on them, and it was an awesome experience. If you have a boat, any kind of stand-up paddleboard, kayak, canoe, anything like that, totally bring that. Everglades National Park is mostly water, so anything that's going to let you get out on the water and access it that way, bring that. We brought a stand-up paddleboard and 2 kayaks. We ended up not using the stand-up paddleboard just because the rangers kind of told us that it would be easier to use the kayaks. So, I don't know. After having done it, I would say that I don't think it would have been that more difficult with a stand-up paddleboard because I'm very comfortable sitting down on my stand-up paddleboard and paddling. But personal preference, and there is the issue of having alligators and crocodiles in the water, and I would say that it's a lot easier to fall off of a stand-up paddleboard than it would be a kayak, so there's a safety aspect to it as well, and we felt more comfortable in the kayaks. And while we're talking about wildlife, before we went, I was really concerned about crocodiles and alligators. I actually called the rangers. They were super helpful, so definitely if you have any questions, call their number. You can go to the visitor center when you're there. They are amazing and incredibly helpful and patient with all of your questions. But I was basically asking them, like, how safe is it? I know that people do this all the time, but like, I'm afraid of alligators and crocodiles. Like, just please reassure me here. And they said basically as long as you're not like dangling your feet in the water or swimming in the water or anything like that, the wildlife is mainly going to be afraid of you, and so they're not going to be attacking you for no reason. So I felt safe. We didn't end up seeing any alligators or crocodiles while we were paddling, which made me feel better about it. And so I definitely, doing it again, I would feel safe and comfortable on my huge inflatable stand-up paddleboard doing that, just because I am comfortable on it. But if you're kind of wobbly or, I don't know, not super experienced or super comfortable on it, maybe opt for a kayak or a canoe, something where you have a little bit more stability and a little bit more distance between you and the water. Alright, so we've talked about transportation and lodging. Now let's talk about amenities. Like I said, this is one of the most isolated national parks that I have been to yet, especially down at the Flamingo end, because you're about 30 to 45 minutes away from any kind of like real civilization by a road. I'm sure on a boat you might be able to get there faster, but I don't know. We didn't have a boat. But as far as amenities goes, this may change in the future with that new complex that they're building. I'm not really sure what's going into there, what they're renovating that for, or anything like that. But as of now, there are no restaurants, there are no hotels, there's no gas station. There's really no amenities. There is a marina store. And so inside of there, they have like camping essentials, sunscreen in case you forget, very limited food. There is gas that can be put into boats and also cars. It is really expensive just because it's the only option that far away. So try to fill up before you make that trek all the way down into the park. When we were getting ready to leave, we realized we didn't have a whole lot of gas and we didn't want to risk running out, and so we were able to get a couple gallons from the marina store just to hold us over until we got back into Miami. One other thing to think about is that especially right now with COVID, there are no like indoor spaces that you can go. That marina store was the only indoor space that I was in for several days. So, hi Stuart. You gotta think about that with the weather. If it's super hot, you're gonna be outside and hot and with the bugs the whole time. Or if it's raining, you're out there in the rain. You're just kind of like in the elements. And that's honestly what like going to a national park kind of is. And that's something that I love about it. But if you're more of an inside person and kind of want your like kind of creature comforts, definitely think about that and prepare and plan so that you have everything you need. And don't rely on like having a gift shop and like that kind of thing to like go in to get some AC or something. There is a visitor center. It's in kind of like a trailer right now, but they were operating outside only because of COVID. So you couldn't go in there. Again, that marina store was the only place, like physical building, that I went inside of that would have had AC or something, but it's a very small place. It's not like you could like really sit down and hang out in there. All right, number 3, we have what to bring. So you gotta think about what time of year you're going. You want to bring stuff for the heat and stuff for bugs. That would be the main priorities. Definitely bring bug spray, sunscreen, sunglasses, hat, all of that kind of stuff. I would also recommend like long sleeves of like a breathable material, just because I've heard that the bugs can be atrocious, and that like even with bug spray, sometimes you just really want those long sleeves. And that'll also help with the sun and stuff too. When we went the first day, it was relatively chilly, for that part of the country, I guess. It really wasn't that cold for us, but we just had like on a little like quarter zip jacket and shorts. So the first day, I think because it was so chilly, there weren't as many bugs. By the time we left, I was definitely getting some bites, but it wasn't horrible in February. Some other things you want to think about, we already said definitely fill up on gas before you get there. That's something you want to bring. Basically bring any essentials that you're going to need because that store is very limited and you are so far away from anything else. In addition, there is very little cell service once you get past that Long Pine campground at the very beginning of the park. So I would recommend bringing a map and also like screenshotting or printing any kind of like materials, like what are they called, confirmation numbers, that kind of thing that you might need for your accommodations or anything else that you would need. Don't be relying on your phone to have service or power, because when you're camping, like I said, there's not like a indoor visitor center or somewhere where you can really go to charge your stuff for that long. And so I would recommend bringing a solar charger, a portable charger, car charger, whatever you're planning to use. Because again, you're not going to be driving around much once you're there. So probably the car charger, like we used a little bit, but unless you're just going to be sitting there running your car, then probably try to rely on a portable charger or a solar charger. There were a couple outlets at the marina store and at the visitor center that could work, but again, you're just like having to sit there and wait for your devices to charge, and that kind of sucks. As far as maps go, we brought this lovely National Geographic map here. Beautiful Everglades National Park. We actually did end up using it. I kind of doubted that we would, but we were trying to bike somewhere and it was really helpful for the biking and the walking trails and driving directions. It's not going to be as helpful when you're in the water going anywhere. You want nautical maps for that and a compass. When we were in the water, we stayed on a trail that was well marked, and so we didn't bring any of that because we don't really trust ourselves to be navigating in the open water. We just don't know how to do that, and so we weren't going to make this be our first time. So if you're comfortable with that kind of thing, or if you're willing to be patient and learn, definitely bring those items that you'll need for that. Alright, now we have what to do. So once you're there, you have all your stuff, you have all of your plans. Great, what are you going to do? So I'll give you a little bit of a rundown of our itinerary. On the first day, we spent all day driving there, so we got there at night. The second day, we biked to the visitor center. We got a little lost, overshot the visitor center, ended up going on a much longer bike ride, but we got to explore more of the park. So we went on a bike ride, went to the visitor center, and asked about backcountry permits. And we ended up getting a permit for Pearl Bay Chickee along the Hells Bay kayak trail. And so after lunch, we loaded up our kayaks with our backpacking gear, and we went on this 3.5-mile paddle out to this Chickee. It's like a backcountry site that we talked about earlier. Paddling out there really did not take as long as we thought it would, and so we had a lot of time to read and kind of chill out, eat some snacks, watch the sunset, kind of get set up and get our camp all ready for the night, which was really nice. The next morning we woke up, and after a quick breakfast we paddled back. It took us about 2 hours, I would say 2.5 hours, to paddle back those 3.5 miles. And then we went back to the visitor center and we asked them about hiking, walking, and biking trails. I would 100% recommend talking to the rangers and asking them about the trail conditions for that day, because they were really helpful and they told us which trails were washed out from storms, which ones were too muddy, which ones were going to be super buggy, which would be the best to see animals and wildlife and birds and all that kind of thing. So trails are changing all the time, especially in this super dynamic atmosphere, so I would recommend getting daily suggestions from them. I'm sure that they were really annoyed at us by the time we left for the amount of times that we went by, but we were keeping them busy, giving them something to do. So we ended up going on the Snakebite Trail. We hiked that one on foot. It was definitely accessible by bikes. We saw lots of bikes there, but it was really beautiful. It's like there's a tree canopy all the way down. I don't remember how many miles it is, but I'll put that information in here later. And then you get to a boardwalk where you can kind of see like where the ocean or the bay is. Bight is like another word for bay, I believe. And so you can see the ocean depending on the tide. There's different birds there. We saw a little baby crocodile. It was a great time. I would definitely recommend it. There were beautiful air plants, just so many birds. It was great. After that, we went back to the visitor center, had some lunch. After that, we got on our bikes and we did Echo Pond, Guy Bradley, and part of the Coastal Prairie Trail. So again, most of those trails on the map and listed online are going to be pretty accessible on bikes depending on the weather, and all of those trails were super, super beautiful. Definitely recommend. If you do have a boat, there is going to be a lot more opportunities available for you. You can go fishing, you can just like go boating and like looking around at the different islands and that kind of thing. We only had those kayaks and stand-up paddleboards, so you can obviously do any kind of water vessel. You can canoe, kayak, stand-up paddleboard, boat, fish. A lot of people go for the birds, so you can go bird watching. Photography is great there, walking, running, any kind of those activities. The only thing that you really can't do in Everglades National Park is swim. One of the days was more warm, and so my sister wanted to get in the water, and she asked one of the rangers if he would recommend anywhere where that was safe, and he essentially said no. And so wouldn't recommend getting in the water just because of the dangerous wildlife, and that is their home and their habitat. All right, fifth and final point. What else you can hit on a road trip to Everglades National Park? So if you're done with your time at the Everglades, I would definitely recommend going back up through Miami and stopping at Biscayne National Park. Biscayne is a lot smaller park. You don't even have to pay to get into it, but they had some great stand-up paddleboarding opportunities. They have some cool snorkeling during the summer. You can see manatees there in like the channels. Yeah, it was definitely worth it. We spent about a couple hours. We spent the morning there, essentially, and that was perfect. We just got somewhere different to see and another national park to check off of our list. Another place I would definitely recommend while in Florida is Rainbow Springs State Park. It is this river with this, oh, hi Stuart, beautifully clear water. Like, it is insane. It's crystal clear blue, and you can swim, you can kayak, you can stand-up paddleboard. They have kayaks and stand-up paddleboards for rent if you would like. We brought our own. And the water is like pretty warm year-round. Obviously we went in February and we were still able to get in. It was a little bit of a shock when you jumped in, but super beautiful, super worth it. If you're looking for camping around there, that was one that we weren't able to reserve the day before, but we were able to find car camping at a state park that was super nearby. It was about 10-15 minutes away. And so on the Florida state parks website where you are reserving campsites, if your park isn't available, then they'll give you suggestions of what's close. So that was a super helpful feature that we used there, and it worked out fine. I don't know what part this is. I forgot this earlier, but it's important, so I wanted to come back and add it. This is our budget. It was a pretty budget-friendly trip. Most of our money was spent on gas because we did do a road trip, and then also those nights at the Flamingo Campground and that one other campground near Rainbow Springs State Park. Also, I forgot to add this earlier, but bring cash, especially if you're not from Florida and you don't have the whatever the pass for the toll roads is called, because at the toll roads they only accept cash, which I was like, it's literally 2021, I don't own cash. And I had to scrounge around in my car and find a random $20 bill that thank goodness I had. So definitely bring a little bit of cash. Those tolls can get expensive, so make sure you have that on hand. Alright, I think that is everything on our ultimate Florida road trip and 2 national parks, 1 state park. That's how we did it. We really loved it, really enjoyed it. If you have your own tips, please leave them below. Any questions, happy to answer them. We really want more people to be able to get out there and enjoy the outdoors. So any way that I can help, I will definitely be glad to. See you out there.